Welcome, new TV viewers, to the Shameless Picture Show podcast.
Picture show.
So this is the Shameless Picture Show podcast picture show. The Shameless Picture Show podcast is a podcast that your hosts, myself, Nicholas Richards, and my co-host,
Michael Vyers. Sorry,
it's not as easy as it looks, is it?
I was also not focusing because I was trying to fix my headphone settings. So, yeah, it is not as easy as I get for.
Where we discuss movies, but it's a little more specific than that. We look at it through the lens of the shame list. And if you're not familiar with what a shame list is, it is a list of, in this case, movies, but it could be books, music, cities to visit, of things that you think you should have done by now that you haven't. So, in our case, we're both indie filmmakers, and we have shame lists of films that, by now, as a filmmaker, we really should have seen. Each episode, we pick one off of one of our shame lists, we watch it, and we discuss. Usually one of us has seen it, not always the case, but we get to look at film through a really interesting lens, I think. So we're about, this will be episode number 9 of the podcast, yes. But, lucky viewers, this is episode number 1 of the TV show. I run a public access television station here in Maryland, and it was pitched to me, hey, why don't you take that podcast that you do and throw it on the airwaves? So I nodded politely and said, okay, if you all want to see me and listen to me, you got it. So we're the TV show version, you're going to kind of get this voyeuristic side look into what Michael and I do recording a podcast. You'll get a little bit more of the casual, off-the-cuff goofiness that we tend to edit out of the audio podcast. You can always listen to that if you want the more professional, polished version. But that's what this is. That's what you're in for, so buckle up. And I think with that, whenever you're ready, unless you had some comments specifically for our TV viewing audience.
No, it's more so now I have an excuse to clean myself up before we record, knowing that people are going to watch me. And
I thought you looked particularly handsome today.
Thank you. I got a haircut yesterday. And the viewers can now take a look at what we're drinking and all the stupid like that. Oh wait, I can't swear. Oops. But yeah, if you want, we could actually we could start rolling on the audio version of this Shameless Picture Show podcast picture show. That rolls off the tongue way better than it should. All right, let's settle. I'm gonna read my written statement. Welcome to the 9th episode of the Shameless Picture Show. I'm your host, Michael Vyers, and with me is...
Nick Richards.
Yeah, you're way better at this than I am.
I've had practice. It took a few episodes to get the...
It took about 6 or 7. Yeah. But today, we're not crossing anything off our shame lists. Nope. Today, we're just going to talk. Like we always do, I guess. This will also mark our very first foray into television production. You just explained it to the people watching, but Nick, you want to give a little? You want to explain a little bit about this to the people listening,
sure.
And say where it's going to be? Because I know it's going to be on television, but people can still watch it.
Right. So yeah, we were pitched the idea of converting our wildly successful podcast into a TV show. I operate a public access television station on the eastern shore of Maryland. So once we get this edited together and we get all the crud cut out of it. It will be
Crud.
on MCTV 15, probably in one of the later slots for those night owls. But then we'll also get it up on YouTube and for all those tech savvy kids that don't happen to live on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. So you can see it wherever you are. So all of our fans in Germany and South Korea can view us live as well.
We're huge in South Korea.
I think we got 2 plays in South Korea this week.
It always amuses me because like I'll look at like our SoundCloud, and I don't know if SoundCloud. I'm still looking into it. I know it'll show us like RSS feed numbers, which means like if it's playing through iTunes or whatnot, what kind of numbers we're getting there. But at least through SoundCloud, it'll amuse me that I'll have like 3 or 4 from Madison or Milwaukee, and then something from Canada or Korea or something strange. It's like, what? It's also amusing too if you... Oh, continue.
Yeah, wonder if it's just, IPs getting rerouted strangely, or if there's actually someone that like just ran across us through SoundCloud and went, oh, this is interesting.
I'm also amused too if you like check our messages on SoundCloud and like the people that have been following us lately, it's almost exclusively independent rappers.
Awesome.
I don't know if they're just following everyone hoping they'll get some follows, but I'm just
Most
amused
likely, yeah.
like it's like we are really popular in the underground rap scene.
I'll be honest, I was not anticipating that demographic. I should have planned better.
I know, we should be talking about like Breaking 2.
Boom, chip, boom. No, not gonna embarrass myself in that way.
You know all the words, don't you? Anyways, so like I said, today's going to be a little different because we're not talking about something off our Shamelist. I figured we'd still talk about movies because there's really not many ways we could do this podcast without that. Like we could talk about what we've just seen. But really, the way I pitched this to you, Nick, was our life in movies, because that's really what it comes down to. It's not just a hobby. It's not just a something we love just for fun. It's like I think about it. My life is revolved around movies, and I feel like if I didn't have that, my life would be a little less special.
You'd still be special to me, though we wouldn't
However,
have met.
Without movies, we wouldn't have met. Yeah, exactly.
That's right. Yeah. Well,
But
yeah.
so yeah, that's kind of the topic I was thinking of, and if
Cool.
I have a couple questions based around, but I figured like it would come from that.
Sure. That's just a leaping off point.
Yeah.
We'll start with this. What are some of your earliest memories of film and how it impacted your life?
It's a tricky question because I feel like, I grew up right around the end of the VHS boom. So I was born in 1990. I had a good 10 years, maybe 5 to 10 years of VHS tapes. And then they went away for DVD, and that was that's a funny story later on because I didn't get them. I'd see the DVD for like Batman Returns, and I thought it was a video game. I was like, "What is this?" Because like they'd always advertise in the back interactive menus, and they'd have a picture of the menu screen, and I couldn't wrap my mind around what it was, and I was too lazy to read what it was.
It's so funny to look back on that now as like advertising menus as a big feature, a selling point.
Or bios. Cast and crew bios.
Nobody cares. Well, people care, but we have IMDb for that now.
Exactly. But my earliest memories, besides, various weird VHS tapes, usually kids' movies, but my strongest, earliest movie memory is seeing Batman Forever in the theater. What year did that come out? Hold on, let me look that up because
I'm really bad with movie dates.
I've got the
Batman
internet,
Forever,
so
was that the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr.
No, that was
Freeze?
Batman and Robin. Batman Forever was
Okay.
the one with Val Kilmer in it and the Riddler and Two-Face.
Oh, yeah.
It came out in
Jim
1995.
Carrey.
Yeah, it came out in 1995, so I was 5 years old.
Yep.
And there was a theater. Well, it's actually come back. There's been a renaissance for it called the Avalon in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, for those of you who don't know. And
I should point out now that we are going to be on the air that is in no way associated with the Avalon Foundation, who is the building that I am in right now, the really cool, historic theater in Easton. So 2 really cool Avalons.
that are both historic buildings. Because the Avalon just reopened a couple years ago after, I want to say, at least 10 years of renovations and everything, spending millions of dollars on it. And it's a cool theater now, but there was something about it when I was younger, because there was the Avalon's big selling point was that its ceiling had a bunch of painted stars on them, so you essentially were watching a movie under the stars. But I remember seeing Batman Forever there, and while I have strong memories of this theater, I think it was augmented by the movie, because in my mind, when I walked into this theater, it's there was a chain link fence somewhere in the theater, and it had all this gothic architecture like the movie. So I think I remember walking into the dark theater and the movie was on. So I think my brain has created the image of what the inside of the specific theater looked like. But I remember seeing Batman Forever there.
Can I persuade you to take a sandwich with you, sir?
I'll get drive-through.
And that's really the only thing I can remember about seeing that movie for that first time. But it's always stuck with me.
I'm sure you could speak more to it, but when we first met, we were experiencing really each other's personality through our films first, because we were at the Beloit International Film Festival.
Beloit?
I saw 2 of your shorts, and you saw my feature film, and that's what brought us together. And one of your films, I know Darkness Theater, it's a longer name. What's
From the Darkness Theater, so you're close.
From the Darkness Theater. When you were just telling that story, I imagine that was influence on that film? Yes, no?
Yeah, it 100% is. Even if it wasn't a conscious decision to do that, it was subconsciously there, because as cinephiles in our age group, going to the movies is a big thing. I honestly don't know how cinephiles nowadays who don't love going to the movies. It's what I just can't wrap my mind around that. So when I wrote that film, it was kind of it was not only me trying to tell what I thought was kind of a creepy, interesting story, but it was a love letter to movies.
Yeah.
And by the way, you got to.
Of course is.
Oh, sorry. Continue.
Which is, of course, why that film spoke to me so much.
Yeah, I'm glad. It's weird. Every person I talk to about it has a different opinion on it, and you can actually watch that film on my website, accidentalconcussion.com. I don't know which version I posted, but I only say that because there's only 2 versions. One there, and they're both the same movie, but one of them is back in the 80s. There was a horror host by the name of Count Gore Duvall, and he dressed like a vampire, and he presented horror movies. If you look him up, he's a very iconic face. You've probably seen him. And I met him at a convention one time, and he saw my movie and he wanted to show it. So I have a movie. My movie's revolved around horror hosts. So I have a horror host presenting a movie about horror hosts, and
awesome.
It's really kind of goofy.
Inception.
Yeah, horror hostception. But no, what I was gonna say was, you've seen 2 of my movies that weekend. You got 2 very different tastes of my personality, because From the Darkness Theater and Love You Still. If you didn't have my name on it, you would just assume 2 very different people directed those 2 movies.
Yeah. And it's. I really respect filmmakers that can do that don't get. I mean, it's people that only do one genre or one style can create some very cool stuff, but it's always a testament to empathy and understanding character when you can take that and extrude it out to many different styles.
No, I completely agree.
I'm guessing if we can get permission from the director, maybe we can insert a short clip of that while we're talking about it, maybe?
Which one?
What, we could do both? Maybe you?
Yeah. If you tell you what, you rewatch it, and you tell me what part you want me to. I want you to grab you a screen, a video section of, or audio, and we'll throw it in for you.
Ooh, what a chilling film that was, boys and girls. I know you wouldn't leave your favorite uncle here all alone with all the creepily crawlies halfway through the picture. You had to stay and watch every last second. You know your Uncle Seymour would do anything for you, right, boys and girls? Just give him a scream and a howl, and he'll rise to lend a hand. Until next time, have a horrible night.
God.
Hey, thanks. How was it?
I thought it was great. I think we can head out.
Excellent.
Nice. A little treat.
Only if you do this. If we throw a clip in for Normal, which might now be the fifth episode I've mentioned this movie.
Absolutely. If you want to see a guy in a monkey suit say namaste to some cops as he gets bailed out of jail, you got it.
He and I are dropping off a package to him.
A package.
Go, monkey! Run, monkey! Get your knees up! Run, fast! Run, you primitive pre-fontaine! Go, monkey! You're in the jungle now! You gotta die!
Crazy son of a...
Hands above your head!
Requesting backup immediately. I have 2 theft offenders in the car. 2 fled on foot, heading south of Mill Road into the cornfield. Unit 5 in pursuit of 1 male, black and dark clothing. 1 male, white, wearing a gorilla suit.
Oh, and by the way, Butch Patrick. Okay, we can continue on now.
Butch Patrick.
Butch Patrick. With the Butch Patrick Picture Show podcast.
I'll now that we got a lull, I'll throw that same question back at myself. So, Nick, what's your earliest memory of films? Well, Nick, let me tell you. I didn't necessarily get into film, I think, in the way a lot of filmmakers that I know did. When I talked to a lot of I've loved films ever since I was a kid. I'd grab my parents' camera and was recording stuff in my backyard.
Yeah, I didn't do any of that shit.
I would love to be able to tell that story, but I like to consider myself a creator of anything, and
yes.
Film just happens to be one of the ways that I create stuff. But for me, film was really a way to relate to my dad, I think. My dad's a farmer, and I
didn't know that.
Yeah, I come from farming folk.
So do I.
They're very nice, very blue collar. I mean, I guess that's
actually,
more typical in the Midwest.
It's not. It's actually my dad's side of the family. So my grandparents are all like pig farmers and coal miners.
Nice, awesome.
They're from the Appalachian Mountains, so coal mining is
right
the
on.
industry.
Right. Yeah. So we didn't I think we both always respected each other, but whenever we found something that we were both into, I think we'd both grab onto that.
Yeah.
And movies was one of that ways. He was really into westerns.
So was my dad.
I got a lot of John Wayne and Clint Eastwood growing up.
To whom do you think you are talking, Marshal?
You is to whom I think I'm talking, sister.
John Wayne and Katharine Hepburn. They were never meant for each other.
but here they are.
I will make sure of what my father's murderers reap.
You will make sure of nothing.
He's True Grit's boozing, woman baiting Rooster Cogburn. She's the lady, all blue blood and steel.
I do not fear a skunk. I simply do not care for his odor.
Then we also, watch the 80s and 90s action films, but, many good bonding sessions over National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, too.
Yes.
Hey, Griswold, where do you think you're going to put a tree that big? Bend over and I'll show you. You've got a lot of nerve talking to me like that, Griswold. I wasn't talking to you.
And that's really what I think was the first big light that popped on for me with movies.
Funny thing is, I told you what my earliest movie memory was, but I don't think I told you about what got me into movies. And
Okay.
it was a series of 3 films. First off, it was I saw it was the first DVD I ever rented. It was Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds.
Oh,
And
nice.
I since it was the first DVD I ever rented, I put on the special features to see how the movie was made, and that just kind of blew my mind. I was like, holy shit, I can actually see how this is done, because up to that point I just assumed every time the camera cut that they just moved the camera right away, and that I didn't understand that really someone wrote it. I don't know, I just figured the director did everything. I figured the director was the one shooting it. I just didn't get it. I didn't understand the whole idea of lighting a scene. I just figured, they just found a place that had cool purple light. That's cool. How'd they find
Awesome,
that?
yeah.
So I got to see how that was done. I was like, oh my god, that's cool. And then I want to say that Halloween, I saw Night of the Living Dead for the first time. Actually, the now defunct channel called G4 was showing it.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Stop it! You're ignorant.
They're coming for you, Barbara.
Stop it! You're acting like a child.
They're coming for you. Look, there comes one of them now.
He'll hear you.
Here he comes now. I'm getting out of here.
Johnny!
And not only were they showing it, but for some reason, Mark Borchardt from American Movie was presenting it. Nick, you know who Mark Borchardt is, right?
I don't think so.
Have you ever seen the movie American Movie?
Oh, I have not. I should add that to my shame list.
Especially because you're a filmmaker from Wisconsin. Yes, you need
Right.
to. It's weird watching that movie since it's made by a UWM graduate about a guy who never went to UWM, but he somehow got it so he could use all their equipment. And it's weird, when he's sitting in the editing booth and or one of the editing labs, and I'm sitting at the same exact chair and realizing it hasn't changed in 30 years. It's kind of weird. But Mark Borchardt was introducing it on G4. I'll throw some audio clips in or something from American Movie at this point, so you can just see how goofy of a character he is.
This is ridiculous. We started May '94, man. We've got every f-stop known to man in the film. And right now, we got to take action, man. We got to go out to that field, put those scarecrows in on a killer slant. They've been there for years. The farm's burnt down. It's going to be the opening shots for Coven,
And what is Coven?
Coven's a 35-minute direct market thriller film shot on 16mm black and white reversal. It's an alcoholic man compelled to go to this group meeting by his one and only friends left, but they're not that helpful, the group, You know about the group thing?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what we're doing a film on. Coven, man. We got to get this sucker done, though. Seriously. Last night, man, I was so drunk I was calling Morocco, man. Trying to get to the Hotel Hilton at Tangiers in Casablanca, man. That's pathetic, man. Is that what you want to do with your life? Suck down peppermint schnapps and try to call Morocco at 2 in the morning? That's senseless. But that's what happens, man.
But I saw Night of the Living Dead for the first time, and that had been on my shame list at the time, being in middle school or high school. Actually, it might have been very, very end of middle school. And first time I'd seen it, and I was like, man, I could do this. I think I could make this movie. It all takes place in a house. The zombie makeup's cool, but it's not like really intense. Like, I could do this. But then sometime beginning to middle of high school, I saw John Carpenter's Halloween, and I was like, yes. I saw Halloween. I was like, I want to do this. It's not that I can do this. It's like, I want to do this. And I told my mom, I want to go to film school out of complete nowhere. Nice. And I started teaching myself everything I could about filmmaking, just through reading books and all that. Like, and I feel like when I was in high school, well, it wasn't that long ago. It wasn't like as easy as like, oh, anyone can go and make a movie, because cell phones weren't really like as powerful as they are now. But so yeah, that was. But what was your? Continue.
Had a similar experience, just in the sense of, I really like DVD special features, behind the scenes videos were kind of that first door of, not only this is something that I can actually do, but I would watch them and take note, or at least pay attention closely. So that's how I learned how, okay, that's how you get a nice tracking shot. And I would, they clearly weren't shooting these behind the scenes things as instructional videos, but that's how I used them.
And there's actually a couple that feel like instructional videos. Anytime you watch anything from Peter Jackson, like, it comes off as an instructional video, like him taking you through every piece of the puzzle. Like, if you ever get a chance to see his movie Bad Taste, it's like I think one of the DVDs, it's really hard to find, but one of the DVDs has a really great couple, at least an hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe even longer, making of feature on it. And it took him 5 years to make this movie. So much so that he has a fight scene with himself in the movie, and he's one character and he's skinny and scrawny, and then when he does the reverse, he's bearded and fat. So much time had changed that he had changed. Sure. So he's going, reverse shot of him fighting himself.
So Boyhood wasn't that groundbreaking of a concept. Peter Jackson was doing it long ago.
Peter Jackson's Boyhood. But what was your earliest movie memory? I feel like we might have talked about that a little bit in the Phantom Toll booth, but I don't imagine that was your first one.
Yeah, no, it doesn't exactly answer your question, but there is an anecdote in our house about the first theater experience that I ever had.
That works.
Before I actually had memories. I was less than a year old, so my first film that I ever saw was E.T. Came out the year I was born, 82, and my parents took me as a small child to see E.T., and apparently my mom decided that I was hungry and needed to eat, and so started feeding me in the theater, and my dad was so embarrassed he never went to a theater ever again.
Damn. I thought it was
how things were in the 80s.
I thought it was hard to get my dad to go see a movie, because my dad was that type of dude that once he got home from work and put on his sweatpants, he wasn't leaving the house.
Yeah.
I remember one time, because if I ever wanted to go to the mall, it was a 2, maybe 3 bus rides to get there. And there was one time it was snowing pretty bad, but I had plans to meet all my friends at the mall, and I was like, "Oh, Dad, could you give me a ride?" No, it wasn't snowing; it was pouring. It was raining. He's like, "Dad, could you give me a ride?" He's like, "You could take the bus." He's like, "It's raining." It's like, "Bring an umbrella." And if I ever wanted to get him to go see a movie, he just wouldn't. He didn't want to spend that kind of money. He wouldn't. If he saw he had to pay $20 for a pair of jeans, he'd flip it.
Yeah.
So one time he took me and my friends to go see a movie for my birthday, and he just seemed so miserable.
I think our dads would get along. And I'm not giving him enough credit, because while it's not technically a theater, he did go out in public one other time that I'm aware of to see a film. And you were in the room. It was the Beloit Film Festival to see Normal, and it was really cool, because I knew that that's not something that he did. He doesn't go, he doesn't really dig going out in public a lot, and especially when there's a lot of people, but the fact that he came to this screening was really cool.
I've got 2 stories like that about my own dad. One of them, it wasn't anything I was involved in, but I started getting to that age where I was trying to find things to relate to my dad with, because he's just, I was just trying to get to know him. I don't know why. I think every kid goes to that. Like your father, who you're kind of afraid of as a kid. As you get older, you're like, I want to try to get to know him. And I knew he was a big fan of Bob Dylan. And they made this Bob Dylan movie, a narrative film where they had 3 or 4 different people playing Bob Dylan through different periods through his life.
Oh, yeah.
I cannot remember the name of this movie right now, but I remember like Tilda Swinton played him at one point, and like that was the most like biographical section of his life, because some of them were kind of like freeform and more based on characters that he played. But
sure.
It was playing at the Downer Theater in Milwaukee, which is on the east side of town. Which, for those who don't know, east side's kind of like the hipster artist area for this college town. So that's not my dad at all. I was in high school, so I couldn't really get down there by myself. And I wanted to see this movie, but I wanted to see it extra bad because it was about a person that he loved. And he agreed to go. And I was like, oh God, this is cool. And like he bought himself a popcorn, and he's not much of a snacker. So like that was big. Yeah. And then I didn't anticipate this being an art film. And he got so bored. He got up 3 or 4 times to smoke a cigarette. But granted, the movie's like 2.5 hours long. And I was like, oh God, he's never going to see another movie of me ever again because of this.
I ruined it. I had one shot.
And then like he also hated it because like he was trying to find parking and he couldn't find anything down in the east side because the parking sucks down there. And I was like, well, there goes my one time to watch a movie with my dad. But then like as I started getting involved with movies, and like I could have just been a PA on something, but he was always first in line to go see it, and that's what made me like it kind of changed our dynamic a little bit.
Nice.
Because like he hated going to the movies, cool. But if I was involved, he would be there no matter what.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That kind of ended up being like a nice little love letter to our fathers.
Yeah, our fathers and movies, and I feel like I should say a dirty word or something just to make it less awkward, because now it's just kind of gotten sentimental.
Mud.
Mitten.
So did you have some other questions that you had kind of pre-prepped, or did we go too far off the path?
No, it's I do have a couple other ones, like do you have a favorite movie and why? Or maybe if not a favorite, but like a couple or something, just kind of give me an idea of like the taste of Nick.
My top 5 has shifted a lot over the years, but my top 1 has been locked in for quite a long time. We may have mentioned it in our Christmas episode, because It's a Wonderful Life.
I think we did, but I don't know if you explained why it's your favorite.
Sure. It's one of the many films that every time I watch it, as long as I'm actually sitting down and paying attention, which is a luxury that I don't always have, but as long as I'm paying attention to it every time at that final scene where all the friends are coming through and he reads the inscription in the book, I will cry.
My favorite scene in that movie is when he's running down Bedford Falls. Yippee!
George! You all right? Hey, what's the matter?
Now get out of here, Bert, or I'll hit you again. Get out of here.
What the Sam Hill you yelling for, George?
George. Bert, do you know me?
Know you? You kidding? I've been looking all over town trying to find you. I saw your car piled into that tree down there, and I thought maybe you... Hey, your mouth's bleeding. Are you sure you're all right?
What you...
My mouth's bleeding, Bert! My mouth's bleeding! Zuzu's pedals! Zuzu... There they are! Bert! What do you know about that? Merry Christmas!
Well, Merry Christmas!
Merry! Yay! Yay! Hello, Bedford Falls! Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas, George!
Merry Christmas, movie house! Merry Christmas, Emporium! Merry Christmas, you wonderful old building and loan! Hey! Merry Christmas, Mr. Potter! Happy New Year to you!
In jail. Go on home. They're waiting for you.
Yippee, Bedford Falls!
House.
Oh, I love that scene.
You beautiful old Bailey building alone. First off, I love it for many, many, many reasons. One of those, and these are in no particular order. Again, when I realized how much I liked it, I was in college at UW Whitewater for music, and I was there for one semester, and I got brought into. First off, it was just kind of a rough year for me, and I would watch that every couple weeks just to kind of remind myself of what was important in life. Friends, family. And after that semester there, I got called into the head of the music department's office. When I left high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do.
It's fair.
I was in band. It seemed like, okay, I'll go do that, I guess. Got called in after a semester at Whitewater, and she said as politely as possible, "You're not good enough to get in as a music minor on probation into the School of Music. Maybe you want to find another career path."
Damn.
I really did. And in my defense, my audition for this, now I'm by no means a really good, but I was competent in high school. I was in all the higher ones. But my saxophone, like, I don't believe in fate, but I think my saxophone, like, betrayed me to get me onto it. Parts were falling off in the audition. My reed snapped in half. I was poor, so I didn't have a bunch of other parts. I had a saxophone. And so I think in part it was my saxophone betraying me, but only in part. I'm not putting it all on that.
It makes complete sense that you played saxophone. I can't explain why, but like once you told me that, it's like, yeah, that makes sense.
And now you know me a little better.
Yeah.
So, and that movie, again, it was something that I watched during that tough time that kind of said, this feels terrible right now, but it's not what matters, and you'll be fine. Then as I started getting into filmmaking, I, again, continued to watch it on a somewhat regular basis, and I really appreciated how in that film, because of the time that it was made, the editing is far from perfect. The camera shots are far from perfect. Some are really good, but there are some that are like just definitively bad. You know,
yeah.
There are some jump cuts that are terrible in there. The acting, when you compare it, because the style is so different, it's not accessible to everybody now. That it is a film with many flaws by today's standards.
My biggest
but
flaw
it is still. Oh, go ahead.
No, so my biggest flaw with the film is actually that the scene where like the angels or God is talking to Clarence, and it's just like a bunch of like a bunch of lights just flickering in us, and I believe it's like the first scene of the movie, and it's like it's such a slow way to begin the movie.
Yeah, and then when Clarence is called for, like a little star just zoop, right across the
like
the
now
screen.
it's comical, but it's not visually pleasing.
So it is a film with many, many flaws, but it is still a great movie, and that's when it was that film that kind of put my focus as a filmmaker on the narrative, because I think the narrative is so powerful that all of the rest of the flaws are excusable.
That's fair. I'm kind of the same way, where like my top 5 rotates quite a bit. I want to say I've got a staple of like probably somewhere in my 10 that are always kind of rotating for top spot depending on my mood. But the one I always pick as my number 1 favorite film, even though I know I've seen better films since that, but this is the film that meant the most to me, is Halloween.
The one, the only, the classic Halloween.
Halloween night. A small American town. 15 years ago.
Michael? Halloween.
Because I wouldn't be a filmmaker had I not seen Halloween. And I still think it's a perfect movie. Even if it's not like perfectly made at times, it's like for everything that I'm looking for in a movie, it's fucking near perfect. But I have a short list of like if I had to pick like a top 4, the ones I've been going with are John Carpenter's Halloween, Heathers, Blowout, and Ed Wood.
I have not seen any of your non-Halloween top 4.
You haven't seen any of those?
No.
Oh, Nick. I figured
I'm
at least
familiar with them.
I figured at least you would have seen Heathers or Ed Wood.
I'm certainly familiar with both of them, but they just never made it.
Like Blowout,
never made it to the machine.
Blowout, I'm not super surprised by because I wouldn't say it's super obscure, but it's a little more obscure than the other two. But
the other two are certainly mainstream movies. I mean, even outside
mainstream cult films, at least
filmmakers, right?
Yeah.
Particularly with Heathers, like that's something that's pretty ubiquitous. Everybody knows what that is.
Blowout's pretty great because it's about John Travolta. Even though he's playing a character, to me it's just John Travolta using filmmaking techniques to solve a murder.
Nice. Well, we will have to add all 3 of those to my shame list and get them checked off. I have not updated this list in a while, but I'll rattle off some of the ones that have been in the top 5 over the course of my 20 years that I've kind of thought about it. Dogma, Kevin Smith's Ode to Religion.
Oh yeah, that and Chasing Amy are always beating the shit out of each other to see which one would make my top. And as of right now, it's Chasing Amy would be my 5th, but Dogma usually ends up low blowing Chasing Amy and taking over for a couple of days.
SLC Punk.
Okay, that's a great one. I haven't seen it in a while, but I love that movie.
That was another one.
Afraid to watch the sequel though.
I saw it. It's nowhere near as good, but it was enjoyable.
It's charming.
You know, yeah.
Okay.
I didn't feel like I wasted my time, but if you hold it up to the standard of the first,
should I rewatch the first one first, or can I just jump right into it?
You can jump right into it.
I might have to do that this weekend.
I was gonna. Fight Club.
Of course.
That was one that really like blew my very linear thinking mind away when it comes to writing and stuff.
The first time I saw it was when I bought my first Blu-ray player, and I found it for like a couple. Like I saw it for like $10, and that was the first time I saw Fight Club, and I was like, this movie's gorgeous. It's got a cool soundtrack. This movie's rad.
Though it was replaced by another of his films, the film that was on longer than the replacement was Memento.
Yep.
Which was then replaced by The Prestige, which we've discussed on the show before.
Oh, yes.
And really anything by him is pretty great.
Him being Christopher Nolan. I don't think you said his name.
Yes.
He's just he
I don't need to.
Everyone knows who him is. No, it's a great list. It's also interesting because like while there's like spillover from both of our lists of things, well, from your list that I like, it's like we have 2 very different lists.
Yeah. And we have almost 10 years separating us. I wonder how much is time, generational shift.
Yeah.
I'm guessing it's not much because our tastes line up pretty closely, and it's not that far away that we're in different, generations.
However, one thing I'll say about being a cinephile nowadays, and especially because we live in the best time for being a collector or a fan, because there's so much out there to get, and so much of it is made available. And this will go into a short topic I'm going to mention in a minute. I'm kind of a Blu-ray snob because I want things to look the best they possibly can, and we live in a golden age right now of physical media where there's, not everything that's ever been released is out, but there's so much that we should not have a pristine copy of a movie as terrible as The Microwave Massacre, but we do, and we're grateful that we do. I'm trying to think of the point I was trying to make here. Oh, one of my biggest problems being a cinephile nowadays, with so much being out, is it's so hard to catch up. There's so many things from the 80s and 70s that I haven't seen that I feel like it's daunting. It's like I don't even know where to begin.
Well, and that doesn't even take into account things like, God, what is it, MGM, and I'm sure some other studios do it too, where that's how I got the Phantom Toll Booth. Like, that isn't something that they made available on DVD to try and make some money on. They just they digitized as much of their catalog as they could, and if you order it, they'll burn off a copy and send
And I love that. Like, that's the only reason I have the movie Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. Guillermo del Toro remade it a couple of years ago, but it was based on a made-for-TV movie, and they had it on their website for a couple bucks. And I was like, you know what? Bye.
Yep. So you'll never see it all. You'll never get caught up. But again, like, what a great problem to have.
Yeah, and then like there's sometimes like with Last Night, like there's movies I saw once or maybe twice and I didn't think very much of it, but then I'll rewatch. Like last night I rewatched John Hughes' Pretty in Pink, and I had seen it either right at the end of middle school or at the beginning of high school, and I went in with it with a negative view because I was watching it with my mom, and while she likes the movie, she automatically told us like, oh, this one's not as funny as 16 Candles. So like I already went in with like, oh, this one's not as good because it's while it's still a comedy, it's more of a romantic film. And I rewatched it last night and I thought, well, one, this movie's amazing. One, I think it's actually a better movie than 16 Candles. 16 Candles, though, I still like, is a little rapey. I rewatched it a couple years ago and it's a little rapey.
just a touch, a smidgen.
But like I rewatched 16 Candles and I watched Breakfast Club around the same time last year, and like I came to the conclusion finally that I think Weird Science is my favorite of John Hughes' movies, for no specific reason other than I think it's just the funniest one he's made. I'm
also a big fan of the TV show that's.
Oh my god, no one else remembers that show, but I think it's all you can watch it all on Hulu right now.
Yep.
I was actually going to do that today.
So do yourself a favor and catch up on Weird Science, the TV show.
Weird Science TV show is what taught me that you can make a Reese's peanut butter cup by putting chocolate and peanuts in your mouth separately.
So it's educational.
But Weird Science is probably my favorite. But I finally came to terms with everyone says The Breakfast Club is John Hughes' best movie, and it very well might be. I think it's his best written film, but Pretty in Pink is definitely his best directed film. Like everything was just working perfectly in that film, and yeah. And plus, I also realized when I saw it the first time, it was around that time where I think Paramount was struggling to keep the rights for all the music in the movies, so they were replacing it with generic tunes. And near the end of Pretty in Pink, they score an entire scene with a New Order with New Order's Elegia, and it's so much more powerful than putting generic ass music in.
Right. As much as I love The Breakfast Club, whenever I watch it, that last freeze frame, I'm like, ooh, really? That's the way we're going out? No, that's cool.
And then
creative
just
choice.
very slow fade down to black.
Yeah. It was another time. I wouldn't have made that choice.
A choice I wouldn't have made in that movie is the dance sequence where they're all like just dancing for some reason.
Yeah,
like
montage dance.
Like there's a couple scenes that are just a little cringy, but I kind of go with the time. Like if I would have seen that final frame in the 80s, I probably would have went out and bought that jacket and a scarf and just been doing that too.
Just walked around town throwing your fist in the air. I have a confession to make, and this seems like the episode to do it in. No, it's good. I think it fits the theme. I may have actually told you this, but I don't remember whether or not I did. It's part of what I love. I was re-listening to our first episode the other day.
I do that occasionally too. Like I'm just curious how we come across.
Yeah, I liked our description of what a Shamelist is, and that describing that moment of being in a group of people and them talking about a film, and you just kind of going, "Yeah, that one," and nodding along.
Yeah.
So when we first met, you saw Normal, and you said it actually reminded you a lot of Repo Man, the movie.
Okay.
And to the best of my recollection, I'm pretty sure I did that very thing. I'm like, oh yeah, that one.
Yes,
yeah,
I remember
cool.
this.
Having never seen it before, so that, like, I think this podcast is a perfect reflection of the entirety of our friendship and how it started, because it started with that.
It started with a lie.
With that pretending so that I wouldn't get like I don't care. I really don't, like, oh, I've never seen that. Oh, you would have been like, oh, cool, you should check it out, and that would have been the end of it.
And which, by the way, you should check it out.
We still would have been friends. I should. It's, if you'll go back and read through my Shamelist on the Facebook page, it's on there. It's buried.
Oh,
it's
you
buried,
hit
but
it.
it's there.
I like it.
So I just wanted to mention that because I think it's cool that we're doing this podcast now when that's happened in that first day.
I've got a confession as well, Nick.
Ooh.
I've never seen Normal.
Try brace.
I'm kidding.
What film is that? I've never seen it either.
You directed it with your eyes closed. You never saw it.
Yep, never.
Oh.
Nope, not one frame.
But I think the last one of the last points I really it's technically 2 points. The last two things I really want to talk about on this, unless you've got things that you want to talk about as well, is one. This is unfair because it's actually like a 3-part question. Like, when it comes to movies, like, what kind of things do you like and dislike? Like, is there an ideal type of movie, an ideal situation? And do you believe in the perfect movie / do you believe in a guilty pleasure? That was a lot to unpack there. But it didn't work as separate questions.
I'll start with the middle bit because it's the one I can answer most succinctly. I absolutely do not believe in a perfect movie.
Okay.
No such thing. Anyone's free to disagree with me, but I don't believe in it. I think what I look for in a movie is one that makes me feel anything. Like, I'm always curious to know what the director was hoping to convey to the audience, what he was hoping he or she, he or she, I only said that because I'm a guy, what they are hoping to elicit from the audience. Mm-hmm. And so I guess, whether or not a director or writer was successful is, did they elicit the reaction that they were hoping to? And that isn't necessarily linear either. They might have been hoping for a range of emotions or to get you to react in any way. So when I go into watching a movie, all I'm expecting is to react in some way.
I get that.
Whether that's to be entertained, to be intrigued, to get me thinking about something in a way that I've never thought about before, to laugh, to cry, combinations of those things. As long as it does something like that, then it was good.
Okay. No, actually, I have a very similar opinion. Well, one, it's a cheat answer. While I do believe there is a perfect thing is a perfect movie to yourself. There's never going to be one movie that everyone's going to think that this is just amazing. Like, in my personal opinion and based on my taste, I think Halloween is a perfect movie. Whether or not it actually is, it's just from my sensibilities, it is a perfect movie. So it's kind of a cheat answer.
And my personality is very, like, I stray away from yes and no, the binaries. I live in the middle, the gray area where, and even like my favorite films, could it have been better? Sure, of course. Could they have elicited more of a reaction? Sure, of course. Could they have elicited the same reaction but tightened up the cuts? Of course.
Yeah.
Like, could they have made it worse? Of course. Yeah. Could they have made it different and still, there's so perfect. I find a very
that's fair. Maybe
tricky.
Maybe
word.
Perfect is the wrong word. I just couldn't think of a better one. And then also what you're saying about what you look for in a movie. This is a quote I've stolen, but it's really it really resonated with me because it was what I was always looking for in a movie, but I was never able to put into words. Unintentionally, a shout out to another podcast. There's a podcast I listen to very often called Shockwaves. They used to be another podcast called Killer POV, and it's a horror podcast. And one of the hosts on the show is named Elric Kane, and he is actually a professor, I think, for Relativity University. And he said a couple times, but there's one episode where he said that more than anything, when he goes to see a movie, he just wants to feel something. Good, bad, or indifferent.
There you go.
And he said if he's felt something, then it hasn't been a waste of his time. And I found with myself that's very true. Like, last year, for example, there was a lot of great animated films that came out. I don't remember what ended up like winning the Oscar for best animated film, but I was rooting for The Good Dinosaur, which was the unpopular choice. But I wanted that film to do well because it made me feel something more than any of the other animated films did. And I find that's what I'm looking for. I want to feel just something.
Yeah.
I want those feels, you know. And then before we move on to my very last question is I want to talk about the idea of a guilty pleasure. Because I don't believe in a guilty pleasure.
I believe that it's certainly a thing that exists, but I think more of what you're speaking to is you shouldn't feel guilty about liking something. That
No,
you
exactly.
Like.
You should like. I've never liked also like terms like, oh, it's so bad that I love it. No, you just love it.
Right.
You don't need to explain. Like, I've always hated that mentality of so bad it's good, or it's like, no, if you love it, it's just you love it. It's just good for you. You don't need to save face by mentioning how bad it is. I don't like that. That's a genre, so I don't believe in the guilty pleasure. You know, like I'll be the first to admit I'm a fan of Lady Gaga. I'm not going to say that's a guilty pleasure.
Oh, yeah.
I just like what she does. You know.
I'm a Taylor Swift guy
There
myself.
you go. See? I was trying to think of one of her song lyrics to throw down, but I couldn't think of anything.
I went back when I was in a band. We did a Taylor Swift cover, but in the style of the White Stripes. That just knocked my side. I loved it, so that was my favorite song.
Oh God, she had a huge hit on her 1985 album, and I cannot think of what they were. But I was at an open mic night one time, and there was this old dude who came in, and like he just has this very unique style because he had like a beat up ball cap that looks like he's worn every single day of his life, denim overalls on, and a red flannel shirt. And he came in with like a beat up Fender Strat that he had hooked up to a pedal and a tiny little amp, and he just busted down this Taylor Swift cover that sounded just like Reckless Eric, if you remember that guy. No. He's pretty fantastic. He threw down like this super like kind of like early garage grunge style Taylor Swift Reckless Eric song, and he's like, that's the only song I know. Good night. And I got up and just gave him a standing ovation.
Were you the only one?
Yes.
Yeah. Now we did Mean, her song Mean, and it had the drum riff and the same kind of distortion as Fell in Love with a Girl.
Oh, that's amazing. I wish you would record that because I really want to hear this.
We'll have to get the band back together.
Get the band back together. I just imagine that scene from
We're on a mission from
the
God.
end of Walk Hard where he's getting all the band back together and they're super old and you never bought drugs, not once.
In 20 years, not once have you thrown a woman my way. You don't think we like cheating on our wives, too?
And you never once paid for drugs. Not once.
You pay that chimp more than you pay us. I had to borrow from the chimp to get a mortgage on my house.
And those stupid Siamese glass cats you get us every year for Christmas. I don't want any more Siamese glass cats.
The Siamese cat is a symbol of nobility in ancient Egypt.
Nobility.
Ancient Egypt.
Cats. And you never paid for drugs. Not once.
You slept with my wife.
You slept with me too, and I've had confused feelings about that for 10 years now. And you never once paid for drugs. Not once.
You're on your own, Dewey Cox.
We're leaving.
Well, I guess this is the end of a chapter in your life, Dewey Cox.
I'm I've only got one last question. Like I said, unless you got something.
Okay.
And this,
No,
and I'm
I'm-
curious, just because when I was in high school and through college, I was single for most of the time. If I had girlfriends, they were never very serious. We'd hang out once in a while, but I spent a lot of my time by myself in my bedroom, just doing whatever the hell I wanted to do, playing video games, writing, watching movies. So I feel like the amount of content that I consumed at that point was way higher than it is now. And I feel like you might be able to speak to the same tune. But now, I'm married. And work a full time.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I work a full time job. I'm a filmmaker on the side. I'm also an editor for Troma. And I've also got ADD. That doesn't help. So I'm busy. You're married. You have 2 kids. You've got a big boy job. So I'm just curious how your consuming of movies and television shows have changed. Do you have a favorite way? Do you prefer going to movies? Do you rent online? Do you prefer Blu-rays, VHS? Like, kind of give me an idea of how you find time to watch movies, and if a perfect world, what you prefer to consume. And I'll give you my answer as well.
Since my second child, since my son Milo was born, he was number 2. My free time went from like when I just had the one kid, and I was doing more stay-at-home dad / freelance stuff. I still had plenty of time / energy to watch things at my leisure. Since Milo's been born and I have the full-time job, I have to work very hard to do anything for myself.
Yeah.
And even then, I'm so tired, either mentally, physically, or both, that it's hard to give it the attention that it needs. And I will say that starting up this podcast has brought film back into my life.
Aww.
Because it was gone since my wife got pregnant for the second time. I have several scripts that are partially written. I'm actually going to be cutting back intentionally on a couple of things that I do at probably this fall in order to finish up some of those writing projects that I have. So yeah, now because of this, I'm taking the time to, put the kids to bed and say, all right, for the next hour and a half, I am going to do something. I'm going to watch something and pay attention to it, not just have it on as background noise.
I feel like that's important.
Yeah. In terms of preference, I don't have any strong feelings. I will watch something on DVD and love it. I'll watch something on Blu-ray and love it. There's something very nostalgic about VHS for me that, I think in the same way that vinyl feels to audiophiles, like that fuzz, that crackle that VHS has, I really enjoy. But I rarely actively think about that while I'm watching it. I pretty easily God, what's the phrase? It's escaping me. My suspension of disbelief is like I'm not hung up on technical stuff very often when I'm watching things. So I can pontificate about it
from your tuchus.
Yeah, from tuchus or any other orifice. But while I'm watching the movie, other than just a general nostalgia vibe, I don't have a preferred consumption route.
Okay. For me, it's like, because like I've had to deal, and I don't want to say like deal like isn't a bad thing, because like I wouldn't trade my life that I have now for anything. But it's like it's been changing the way that I think about like consuming things, and like I often get like really paranoid because like. I feel like I usually always ask Amanda what she wants to watch, because like I feel like if I'm constantly the one programming everything, I always feel like she's gonna get sick of everything, of the things I want to watch, or like because I'll go through moods where like I just want to watch movies from this specific year that deal with this specific subject, like I'll get really into like a mood, and I was like I don't feel like it's fair, because I was one time in a short-lived relationship where like I was told that. It's like, you always pick the movie. Why can't I pick once in a while? And then it's like, I got really self-conscious about it.
Right. Do I do that? Oh God, I'll never watch anything.
Yeah, exactly. So it's more of a like me trying to like pass the torch a little bit. It's like, you know what, you pick something. But my preferred, if I could watch everything in a movie theater, I would. That's why I think it's my eventual dream one day to like when we buy a house to convert a room of it to an actual theater, like have a screen, a projector, maybe a love seat or something.
Theater
yeah, I'd love to
seating,
have theater
yeah.
seating, but like whatever I could afford, like a popcorn machine. Like I want to actually have a real theater, surround sound, or as real as I could do, you know, on a budget. And I want to have like everything hooked up
Right,
to it. If I want to watch a VHS tape in my theater, I want that option. Actually, it'd be cool if I could have like curtains that came in and like that'd be cool.
Living the dream.
But as far as preferred methods, like I'm like if I really want to see a movie, like really want to see it, like I will watch it pretty much any way I can. I'd prefer if it's a new movie to either see it on Blu-ray or streaming HD, because like if it's a movie that I really want to see and it's a newer movie, like sometimes DVD is not very kind to how crisp and clean new movies are.
Right.
I'd rather watch an older movie on DVD if that makes any sense. It's hard for me to explain why. Like,
yeah,
probably because like movies are shot so much more, shot in such a higher definition now that I want to see it as high definition as I can.
Sure, and certainly you can't ignore that production techniques are tailored towards the understood presentation media of the time. So the makeup techniques that were used in the 40s and 50s didn't work in the 80s and 90s, and the lighting and makeup techniques of the 80s and 90s don't work now. And so to be taking their production and then putting it on that different media can create some strange
Yeah,
results.
because like there's some horror movies that I'm so used to watching on VHS. I feel like it would be weird if I watched them on like a pristine Blu-ray. Like it would probably change it for me. I'm a collector when it comes down to it. So my preferred medium is definitely Blu-ray, because I've got a really nice 4K television that I have the settings set up where it actually play. And I notice it now since I've got like a 50 to 60 inch television that I have it set so it plays in 24p. So it recreates the look of film, and I could never notice it on a smaller TV. I notice it. I notice when during movement scenes how that looks, and I only get that on Blu-ray. So it's like it's something I crave to see it as cinematically as possible, but then
all of a sudden feels like you're watching a soap opera. Oh, gotta make sure it's not in 30.
Yep. But then at the same time, like I've become a big advocate for streaming, because going to what we were talking about earlier about how there's so much old content that I've just never been able to watch. So many of these streaming channels, you know, because I've got Netflix, I've got Hulu, I've got Amazon Prime, and I've got Shudder for all my horror needs. There's so much stuff out there that I might not, if I was just strictly buying the DVDs, I would have never have seen.
It would never have made the list enough to pay to have it there. But when you have the service and you can pull it up whenever, it's gonna hit you.
Yeah, it's like, oh shit, I would have never paid to see the Microwave Massacre, but I'll stream it.
Hell yeah.
I've now name dropped Microwave Massacre twice in this movie. If someone goes out and watch Microwave Massacre, well, one, I'm not advocating that, but tell me what you think.
Well, I think the time on the clock says I gotta prepare for my next shoot.
Oh, bully.
So
okay.
But I'm really eager to see how our first TV episode cuts together, and that'll be exciting.
I agree. This has been fun. I feel like we every so often we should just do an off episode where we just sit and talk, because this has kind of been fun.
Absolutely.
Like we can pick different topics. It's kind of what I do with A Moment of Michael. I just find something to talk about for a little bit. But no, this has been fun. Like I feel like I got to know you just a little bit better.
Yeah. So on our next episode, Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
For sure this time, because you'll have the DVD. I
don't.
You
yet.
will by then.
It's ordered.
If you don't by then there's just something wrong.
Maybe it's in my mailbox as we speak.
But no, this has been great. All right. Is there anything else you want to add before we sign off?
I don't think so. Just my enthusiasm for getting another format and echoing my agreement that this episode is a nice palate cleanser in between our film-specific episodes.
All right, I think that's all I got. Thanks for listening, guys. I honestly I've wanted this podcast to work from day one, but what's the opposite of optimist? I can't think at the moment. But I'm such a pessimist at times that I don't even know what the word pessimist means. But I'm such a pessimist at times that I was scared that like we wouldn't make it to episode 10, and we were like one away from it. And after, I feel like once we,
I'll make sure we close it down before the next episode.
I feel like once we hit episode 10, like we'd be on such a roll that I feel like we have it down to. I don't think as long as we want this show to go on, it will.
Yeah, and I'm a raging optimist, so I'll help balance us out.
Well, see, the funny thing is, like, I'm usually not such a pessimist, but I just know how podcasts can go. So,
sure.
But thank you for everyone for listening. This has been another episode of the Shameless Picture Show podcast, and now the newly formed Shameless Picture Show podcast. Picture Show. I love saying that.
That's totally the title. We're locking that one.
Yes. Have a good one, guys. We'll see you when we see you.